Friends, let's start with an honest conversation. If you work in coaching, psychology, mentoring, or as an expert, you've probably felt the strange tension that's been hanging over the market for the past few years. On the one hand, it seems like there are more opportunities now than ever before. Online platforms, social networks, artificial intelligence, access to knowledge from all over the world. On the other hand, the sense of stability has disappeared. Clients have become more demanding, competition is tighter, people's attention spans are shorter, and expectations for results are higher. And many experts, even very talented ones, find themselves in a paradoxical situation. They have extensive knowledge, studied at top schools, hold certificates, go through supervision, and genuinely want to help, but still don't feel any inner support. Their income is unstable, clients come and go in waves, and the depth of work varies. From time to time, the question comes up, am I good enough? What if there's still something I don't know? What if the client doesn't get results? Before we go any further, let me say a few words about myself. I've been in the fields of psychotechnology, neuroscience, and psychology for over 25 years. More than 3,000 students have completed my courses. I'm a member of the Royal Medical Society and a pioneer in integrating VR and artificial intelligence into the work of psychologists and coaches. And most importantly, I'm an expert just like you, a person who believes in depths. The problem with modern coaching isn't a lack of tools. If anything, there are too many of them. The real issue is the absence of a systematic formula that combines deep psychological transformation, a tech-driven process, and a clear monetization model. Usually, a specialist only has one of these. Either they're a strong transformer but can't build a steady client flow, or they're good at selling but their work lacks depth, or they know the technology but haven't integrated it into their own personal maturity. That's exactly why today I want to break down the formula for evolutionary coaching, a model that brings together three key elements into a single system. But before we get into the formula itself, it's important to understand the context. Over the past few years, I've observed hundreds of specialists who came in with similar concerns. Some would say, I'm burning out, it's hard for me to work with clients, or I seem to be helping, but people don't finish the program. Others would honestly admit, I'm afraid to raise my prices because I'm not confident in myself. And some would say, I don't understand how to compete with artificial intelligence when people start asking AI for advice. And in all these stories, there's a common root: the lack of deep work with automatic behaviors. Most people, including experts, live according to automatic patterns. We think we make decisions consciously, but in reality, 80 to 90% of our behavior is driven by subconscious programs. And this applies not only to clients, but to coaches themselves as well. For example, if a coach has the belief that money is dangerous and putting yourself out there isn't really healthy, no strategy will work. If you have a fear of being rejected inside, sales will always feel like rejection. If you believe that you're not competent enough, you'll keep learning endlessly and keep putting off scaling up. And this is where the key point of our conversation begins. Evolutionary coaching is not at all about a set of techniques. It's a system where we work on the level of automatic behaviors, because until those automatic responses change, a person will keep going back to their old ways, even if they logically understand everything. Let me give you an example. Imagine someone who wants to increase their income. They read books, attend trainings, make a financial plan, and write down their goals. On a conscious level, everything seems right, but when it comes time to actually ask for a higher fee, anxiety rises up inside. They literally can't bring themselves to write the new price. Why is that? A deep-seated program makes them feel like they're not worth more, or that they'll be rejected if they ask for a higher amount. And until that program is reworked, the person will keep refusing. That's why the formula is based on hypnocoaching and the PLPT technique. It's a system that allows you to work with the subconscious gently, safely, and yet deeply. Let me emphasize right away, we're not talking about stage hypnosis or losing control. We're talking about methods of focusing attention, working with images, emotions, and bodily reactions that let you access core beliefs and change them. This is work with the level of the psyche where default reactions are formed. When we change the default reaction, behavior starts to change without forcing yourself. And if before a person would automatically avoid difficult conversations, after the reprogramming, they can enter them calmly. If before they sabotage starting a project because of an inner fear of making mistakes, now they develop inner resilience. This is about truly resetting the system. Here's what's important: the modern client can feel the difference between superficial work and deep work. They might not know the terminology, but they can sense whether their inner state is changing or not. That's why the market is gradually moving away from talking just for the sake of talking and is starting to value specialists who can actually deliver results. To make this easier to explain, and I often use metaphors, imagine a person tied up with invisible ropes. They want to move forward toward their goal. They have the energy, they have the intention, but they're not making any progress. And the problem is, they don't see that they're tied up. They think there's something wrong with them, that they're lazy or not motivated enough. In reality, what holds them back are internal limitations, beliefs, fears, past experiences, and traumatic episodes. The goal of evolutionary coaching isn't to push someone forward or yell, "Pull yourself together." It's to help them see and remove those restraints. Once the restraints are gone, movement happens naturally. You don't have to force the person because the inner conflict disappears. This is the first facet of our formula, a deep transformation through working with automatic behaviors. At the same time, it's important to understand that if the coach themselves has invisible restraints, they won't be able to effectively help others remove theirs. That's why the formula always starts with the specialist's own inner maturity. You can't lead a client further than you're willing to go yourself. You can't create a sense of stability if there's chaos inside. A specialist can be very strong, perceptive, and sensitive, but their work still remains unpredictable. With one client, there's a huge breakthrough. With another, just an average result. And with a third, it feels like you're just spinning your wheels. When results vary so much, anxiety creeps in. What if I can't repeat my success? The second facet of the formula, as you've probably guessed, is the technology. Technology is by no means about a mechanical template. At its core, technology is a structured system that lets you understand exactly what you're doing at each stage of your work, why you're doing it, and what result it should lead to. When you have technology, you stop working on intuition or luck and start working like a professional who can see the roadmap. Imagine a doctor who treats patients based on inspiration every time. It's hard to imagine, right? Every expert has a protocol, diagnostics, and a step-by-step process in their back pocket. For some reason, in coaching, people often think that good rapport and the right questions are enough. But if we're talking about serious results in areas like income, leadership, or psychological resilience, empathy alone just isn't enough. The PLPT technology is exactly what creates the systematic approach. It includes diagnostics, identifying key automatic behaviors, working with root causes, reinforcing new behavioral strategies, and making sure changes are integrated into the client's real life. This means that every session has a goal, a logical structure, and clear criteria for progress. At the same time, we shouldn't forget about such an important element as anti-fragility. Every new level of development inevitably comes with what's called a growth dip. When a client starts to step out of their comfort zone, the old strategies stop working, while the new ones haven't taken hold yet. At this point, many people experience a setback, and if the specialist doesn't realize this is a natural stage, they might start doubting themselves or try to soften the process. But if they have the right method, they know how to guide the client through this dip so that it becomes a point of growth, not a breakdown. Let's look at an example. Svetlana, an entrepreneur, went through 2 bankruptcies. On paper, she knew everything about business, strategies, finance, marketing. But deep down, she had an ingrained mindset tied to a sense of instability and a fear of big money. Every time her income started to grow, self-sabotage would kick in, impulsive decisions, unnecessary risks, and avoiding structure. Through working with her automatic behaviors, we uncovered a core belief connected to her family history and a fear of standing out. After reprogramming and building a technological action model, her business didn't just recover, it became stable. Most importantly, her inner foundation changed. She stopped living in constant expectation of the next crisis. Notice, this isn't a one-time burst of motivation, but a conscious, systematic change. So, what happens to a coach when they have a system? First of all, the anxiety goes away, confidence in the process appears, and the ability to explain to the client what's happening and why emerges. This builds trust, and trust directly affects the depth of the work and the client's willingness to invest. In addition, having a system allows you to scale. If you want to go beyond one-on-one sessions and create group programs, online courses, or mentorships, you need a structured model. You can't scale chaos. You can't pass on to your team something that only exists in your head as intuitive decisions. The second aspect of the formula is moving from I feel to I understand what I'm doing and why. As we've already established, a system doesn't work without the specialist's own personal transformation. And on the flip side, personal depth without a system remains limited. When these two elements come together, you get a new level of professional, a person who is both internally mature and externally structured. Vladimir, a sports psychologist, worked with athletes. He had a great rapport with his clients, but the results depended on the individual person. After implementing a systematic approach, he was able to clearly diagnose blocks related to competition, fear of failure, and the pressure of expectations. His work became more precise and faster. The athletes started showing consistent results, and Vladimir himself began working with higher level teams. His confidence grew because he saw success repeat itself. So, the third facet of the formula, depth plus technology, doesn't guarantee a sustainable business if there isn't a systematic monetization model. This is the most sensitive issue for many experts. Let's talk about money. The paradox of today's market is that a huge number of truly skilled professionals remain unstable, even though they know how to help, have case studies, and grateful clients. Their income is constantly fluctuating from high to low. One month, your schedule's packed. The next two, just a couple of clients and zero success. Anxiety starts to build up inside, and that anxiety begins to affect your behavior. You want to make a sale faster? Push harder to convince people and lower your prices just to fill up your calendar. But a sustainable business isn't built on anxiety, it's built on a system. When we talk about monetization in the context of evolutionary coaching, we're not talking about aggressive sales tactics or manipulation. We're talking about building a well-structured client journey from the very first contact to achieving results and encouraging repeat business. The first element here is your audience. A specialist needs to have clear positioning. And if a coach's position is to help everyone, there will be no one left to help. You need a clear understanding of exactly who you work with and what kind of transformation you provide. And the clearer you can articulate the result, the easier it is for the client to make a decision. People don't buy sessions, they buy change. The second element is content. Content that not only informs, but also creates awareness of the problem. Most potential clients are in a state of, something bothers me, but I can't quite figure out what it is. The expert's job, through materials, live streams, and articles, is to reveal the depth of the issue, point out hidden automatic behaviors, and show that a solution exists. Because when someone recognizes themselves in the description, they develop a need for change. The third element is the strategy session. It might seem like it's just a free consultation for the sake of it, but that's not the case. We're talking about a structured conversation where the client clearly sees the gap between where they are now and the result they want. As we've already discussed, if a specialist has a method, they can show the way forward, not just inspire. Only then does the sale become a logical continuation of the process, not a separate, stressful event. It's very important to understand selling isn't a separate activity, it's part of the overall system. And if the previous elements are set up correctly, the sale happens naturally. This is connected to a rather painful thing that many experts go through, devaluation. They feel like they should help from the heart and that money is something secondary. But if a specialist doesn't receive fair compensation, sooner or later they burn out. Money is the energy of exchange. It allows you to grow, learn, create new products, and invest in quality. When you have a formula, you understand the value of your work, not just emotionally, but in terms of results. You know what kind of transformation you provide, what stages you guide people through, and what changes become lasting. This removes internal conflict and makes your pricing justified. To make it clearer, let's try to break it down with an example. Maria worked with entrepreneurs. She was insightful and attentive. Her clients appreciated her, but her income stayed at an average level. After integrating the formula, she restructured her program, clearly outlined the stages, strengthened her work with automatic behaviors, and added a system for tracking and measuring results. At the same time, we developed a content strategy and a model for strategic sessions. As a result, not only did her average check increase, but the conversion rate for her long-term program also improved. The main change happened within her. The fear of naming her price disappeared because she understood the value of the process. Now, let's try to put together the puzzle from the pieces we've been gathering in advance. Depth delivers real results for the client. Technology makes those results repeatable. Monetization creates stability and scale. When one piece falls out, the whole system starts to wobble. If you only have sales but no depth, clients don't come back. If you have depth but no sales system, the specialist remains under financial stress. If you have technology without personal transformation, the work becomes dry and mechanical. Evolutionary coaching is about integration. And if we're talking about 2026 to 2027, the market will keep raising the bar. Artificial intelligence is already taking over some of the informational tasks. Simple advice and surface level techniques are becoming available to everyone. What remains is what can't be fully automated: deep work with people, systematic support, and a mature professional stance. Specialists who combine depth, technological savvy, and a solid business model will reach a whole new level. The rest will be fighting for attention in an oversaturated field. So the question isn't whether to grow or not. The question is, what model will you use to do it? If you feel ready to move from unstable income to predictable growth, from inner anxiety to professional confidence, it means you're already at the stage of evolution. As we've discovered, the formula already exists. From here, it's just a matter of deciding: keep working with the old model or integrate a new system and take your practice to a level where depth meets stability. At this stage, everyone makes their own choice. If you watch this video all the way to the end, it means something inside you has already responded and you feel that you're capable of more. Below this video, you'll find the first step, a mini practice that starts the work with automatic behaviors. Go through it and listen to yourself. Do you feel a difference in your state, and is your perception changing? And after that, it's simple. You can leave everything as it is, and then the next year will be just like the last one. Or you can incorporate the new formula into your practice and start building a sustainable, systematic approach to your work. Either way, I was glad to see you here today, and I'll be happy to welcome you among my students. Thank you.